Hey guys, happy Friday. I'm Daniel Norton. Welcome to my studio. And today we're going to talk a little bit about retouching. So I got a question. Somebody had watched a video where I mentioned that I don't generally retouch, and if a client needs retouching, it's generally outsourced. So there was a whole bunch of more elaborate stuff like, do you do JPEGs, blah, blah. So I'll kind of go through my process for different types of clients. And also let's define some terms. So when I say that I don't retouch, what I generally mean by that is I do not, for the most part, change the structure of somebody. I don't slim them down. I don't typically remove wrinkles. I don't, remove moles. I don't smooth the skin. Those are the things that I call retouching. Now, I do that stuff in a sense while I shoot, while I'm thinking of it, right? What I do is tweak images or edit images. Those you've seen me probably do on my Twitch channel, and then I sometimes rebroadcast them here in Capture One. So I will go into an image and adjust the brightness, the contrast, the curves, the levels, this kind of stuff, color balance. That's not retouching, right? That is tweaking or finishing the images. Now I shoot raw, right? Because that was one of the questions: do you shoot JPEGs? And I shoot raw so that I can do that, right? So I do that part, and then I release or send the finished images to the client as JPEGs. This is assuming that the client is like a portrait client, let's say, or a model that I'm shooting their portfolio or something to that effect, right? If it's a commercial client, typically I'm going to do all those adjustments in Capture One again, and I'm pretty sure I made a video about this, I'm going to deliver the entire session to them. And then they're going to take it from there, because they're going to do color separations, especially if it's being printed. So that's a whole other thing that I just don't deal with. It's not what I do. There's people that do that. That's what they do. They're professionals at it. But I think probably what this person's talking about, because I think most people, when they're addressing questions to me, because most photographers are more what I would call retail photographers, that is dealing directly with clients, that's what they're talking about. So how do I do it, right? What do I do? So in that case, if somebody comes to me and they say, let's say I photograph somebody, and they say, oh, you know what? I want you to remove my uncle from this picture of my uncle from there and put a different picture because they were blinking or whatever, And that's beyond the scope of what I can do as a photographer, as a retoucher. I'm not a master retoucher. It's not something I really feel comfortable doing. So for that kind of work, putting them in a different scene, doing massive amounts of skin retouching, generally speaking, I'm going to, recommend a retoucher or whatever. And what I'll do then is I will give them a larger file, number one, because I don't normally give like a full-size file because most people don't need full-size files. I will give a larger file because retouchers want the biggest file possible. And I will sometimes ask them what the retoucher asked for, but probably a Photoshop file is how I would deliver it. So I would export directly from Capture One to a PSD file. This will keep all of my corrections, of course, so they'll start with the baseline images, but it'll be a nice, clean, fresh image. You could also export it as a TIFF. And again, this is why I would ask. What I probably wouldn't do is export it as like a DNG or give them a raw file, because I want to make sure my initial tweaks are going to be there. I don't want them messing with that in a sense, right? Which is different than a commercial client, right? If I'm shooting a catalog, I give them the raw files. My tweaks are there. If they need to mess with them, that's fine, because they know what they're doing. They're color separators. They're not, some retoucher from Fiverr. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I know there's a little flipping there, but they're not just some retoucher that wasn't part of the shoot. They weren't part of the client. They were just some person that's retouching. So why don't I retouch? Might be a better question. Well, why do I say that, right? Am I just, I don't retouch? I don't have anything against retouching, but my feeling generally goes like this. I try to get it as close as possible to perfect in camera. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I talk about that a lot in other videos and other times, and maybe I'll do another thing just talking about that. But the idea is I talk about that. The reason why I do that is because I want somebody to see immediately in Capture One what they're getting, right? I don't want them to feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know how this is coming out, whatever. I want them to feel like, okay, yeah, I got it, right? This is the shot. Now, if I'm shooting something and I have to do tons of work to it after the fact. Like I'm doing, let's say, a beauty portrait or a glamour portrait of somebody, and I show them the image on the screen, and they're just like, "Oh, whoa, there's dark circles under my eyes, and you can see all my pores. I don't like this. I don't like that." Well, I mean, hopefully I wouldn't have done that if it was a beauty portrait, but at the time as I'm shooting it, I'll be able to look at it and be like, oh, okay, you want your skin to be more smoothed out, and I will then change my modifier. Maybe use something that's larger so that the softer light's going to smooth the skin more. Maybe I'll fill in more so there's less shadow. Maybe if I want more pop, I'll use a silver reflector instead of a white, or vice versa. And I'll make these changes on set so that when somebody's looking at the images at the end of the shoot on my computer, they shouldn't need much retouching. Now, there's some things you can't avoid, right? Some weird piece of hair, a pimple that couldn't really be covered properly, a wrinkle in the garment, something that, something you just don't notice in a quick shot. And this sometimes happens to me when I'm doing I love to shoot in between things. Like I get them laughing and they react, and those are sometimes my favorite shots. But those sometimes aren't perfect because the hair moves, whatever. Those might need some retouching, and again, that's when I would send it out to somebody. That's not to say I can't do it. It's just that I try to avoid it. So hopefully that was helpful. If you do this kind of business, I'll say one more thing. I know I'm going over 5 minutes, but what got me into the habit of doing this actually was when I started doing more actors' headshots. Because what I found was the reproductions, which is a great printer, for 8x10s in the city. There's also one in LA, I believe. And they, as part of their package usually, you get like 15 minutes of retouch. And what they do during that 15 minutes is they color correct it and they do the separations. But these guys are expert retouchers. So if there's just a couple little things that need to be done, a pimple, a hair, stray hair, or whatever, it's better for the actor to just have them do it there. They're already getting that expert retoucher in front of them. So, I mean, yeah, I could make a little extra money doing it, but I just felt like it wasn't worth it for me. So it got me in the habit of not doing that. I'd like to send my work out to get retouched. It's just not something I deal with. So what do you guys do? Do you retouch your own work? I'm guessing most people do. I think some people like the retouching more than the shooting, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just a different way of working. So let me know what you guys do. Do you send work out? Do you retouch it yourself? Do you never retouch? I'd love to know. Anyways, put some comments below, subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't already so you get all the notifications, and I'll see you next time.